So yeah, I'm a research fellow at CASA UCL. So I will present some work in progress. This is a joint work with Michael Batty, who is supervising the project. I'm also an associate researcher at Complexity Institute and Géographicité in Paris. So as it is work in progress, the focus of the talk will be more methodological on how to build this open model from open source components. So just to give a bit of context on how we came out with this project, how the idea was incepted. So it was about 1 year ago when everyone started to work on COVID and lockdown and so on. At the beginning, we say, okay, let's try to not do the same as everyone. But in the end, there was some grand call from Daphne, so from UCRIC. So we had to answer, and then in the end, we ended working on this. So the context is that public transport may be an unfavorable environment for COVID transmission. And also the fact that there's a lot, of course, of changes in mobility pattern due to lockdown restrictions and changes in homework policies and so on. So we identified this strong need for open and reproducible transport models to study this kind of issues. So for people who know the MATIM model, so MATIM is more a framework. So it's a Java framework and library with a lot of different modules and a lot of submodels. But the core of the MATIM model is just a transport simulation. And to run it, you need to couple it with other models. You need to be able to generate some synthetic population, to distribute your population, to generate timetables for your population. And you also need to write your own processing and analysis. So running a MATIM model is not just running it, you have a lot of work to integrate actually it. And more generally, if you go to bigger models, like the land use transport models, you can understand them. So this is from the review by Michael Wegner on the land use transport model. You can see this LUTI model as a progressive complexification, and you've got these more and more complex submodels that are coupled together. And depending on the type of model, you have one module which is activated or not. So the idea is really it's always modular, and it tends to be huge in the end. So quite quickly after this model were created, there was some discussion, and Lee back in '73 said that this model had actually no application at all, and he wrote this famous paper on a requiem for large-scale models. And Mike Batty recently also said that also urban analytics and smart city may follow the same path of being not useful at all if they ignore the past, what happened with this model and complexity of cities. So what we think and what we claim is that to still have some relevance in these large and huge urban models, we need some transparency on what data is used, transparency and implementation, and full reproducibility. And we need also to validate, to be able to have a robustness and validation of the model themselves, but also the submodels. And so that's from came the idea of a small simple model that we would couple together to build a larger model. So yeah, the idea of modularity. The methodological context is building modular model using a scientific workflow system. So just to give a bit of background, a scientific workflow system enables reproducible numerical experiments and data processing. Generally, these are domain specific, and they're often coupled to HPC infrastructure, so you can run your model on a large-scale computing infrastructure. And they also generally provide some quite good flexibility with a scripting language, so you can integrate your models within scripts. So yeah, so the proper approach is to build this kind of modular model from the bottom up using workflow systems. So what is the case study and the particular models we implement in this? So the idea is to have a 4-step multimodal transport model using only open source projects and data. So I already mentioned that for the core transport simulation, we use the well-known MATSIM model. So it's developed for a long time and it's well validated. Then to generate the synthetic population, we use the Spencer model, which is developed by the team of Nick Lomax at the University of Leeds in the framework of the NISMOD project at the beginning. And so we use just the static part of the model, but it provides some synthetic population at the MSOA level. Then we need to generate for this population to generate some timetable, saying this guy goes to work at 8 a.m. and then come back from work at 7 p.m. Where does he work and so on. So to have some home workflows, we use a Quant model. So Quant is developed for about quite a long time now at CASA, mostly by Richard Milton and my Betty. So so you've got one online implementation of Quant that you go on this website, and we use a desktop implementation that we recorded. And finally, you have a lot of data processing to generate road networks and so on. And for this, we use a library. I will detail a bit this later. It's a library for spatial scientific analysis developed by the OpenMOL community. So the data we use, first, the thing is kind of generic for any functional urban area. So we use the GHSL data from the European Commission. So you can query one functional area, but you can also run it on any polygon. So you can give a shapefile and polygon and say, okay, run the model on this. It makes less sense, but sometimes it's useful. For example, studying the Cambridge-Oxford corridor. It's not a single functional area. Then we use NOMIS census is used by the Spencer with the owner survey roads and the Travelline national dataset for public transport. So we use two different workflow systems. So the Daphne facility, it's a project funded by UCRIC, which provide an integrated workflow system. I will show more of this later. And also the OpenMOL open source software to explore and validate models. So what is currently implemented, so I said that it's a work in progress. We've got the synthetic Spencer population generation. So this is, then indeed you've got your MATSIM XML downstream of this, the Quant model to generate more workflows. And all of this is fed into a one-mode MATSIM model. So for now, what is integrated into the workflow system is just the one mode, but we have a multimodal version. So with walking, bike, public transport, and car, which is being tested. And how do you integrate your model into a workflow system? You use Docker. So Docker is a technology to embed a model and to run them independently of the system you are on. So just to give a glimpse of what you need to do for the data preparation. For example, the world network, starting from the owner survey data. So there is a bit of work of joining the tiles from an owner survey, aggregating this at the level of FUA, merging, and then constructing from this a topological network, because the MATSIM model requires an XML description of a network on which you can do some routing and so on, so topological network, not just a shapefile description. And then for public transport data, we also use the open source components. So there is this nice R package developed by athletes, I think, UK to GTFS, to go from a transaction to GTFS, and then using a public transport to MATIM to go from GTFS to Maxim XML schedule. Okay, so just for people who are not familiar with it, so what is a Daphne facility? It is a platform which is currently developed and which will be soon launched to the broader public for infrastructure research at the beginning. And it provides different components like the sharing of data sets, model upload, so you can embed any models as long as you get one Docker container, and also access to high-performance computing within the facility and workflow system. So if you go on the website, you can, if you're an academic in the UK, you can request an access to the Daphne platform. You cannot directly create an account, but you can write them and ask for an account. I think if you're an academic in the UK, you can request to test it. And within the platform, you've got this workflow system, which is a visual workflow system, where you build your workflow and you couple your submodel within the workflow system. So this is an example of a very simple workflow for the full transport model built from the components. So you've got your network processing, then you've got your population processing, and you feed all of this into the MATSIM component, and then you're able to visualize in the end the result from MATSIM. You can also build a bit more complicated workflows. This is an example of a Monte Carlo experiment on the model where you've got an iterator, and you will run the same as before, but over a different step, changing, for example, the random seed of the model. So you can iterate over parameters. And within this platform, you've got a visualization notebook. So for now, it's a Jupyter notebooks for visualization, where you can write your own either Python or R scripts to visualize. So this is an example of some flows for a small area that I wanted to test to visualize results. Just to give a bit of examples of first simulation results. So for now, we run on the platform. The one mode model, so only for cars, and for several largest urban areas, except London because it's still too big. There is a bit of streamlining to be able to run London in terms of memory and so on. But still, all this area, and from this we benefited from the computational power of the platform, being able to parallelize everything and to parallelize also inside the model. You've got some option in MATSIM to parallelize. So this is an example of distribution of trip distances when you reach equilibrium in MATSIM for this different area, and you see that you've got some area where people travel more, of course, than others. We can also look at trip departure time, which is a bit more stable than less sprawl and quite localized. So timetable converge quite to the same in this case. We also tested some sensitivity experiments, and for now just looking at the role of stochasticity. So when you run the model several times, do you obtain the same patterns? And actually we kind of do. So the differences we observed here in the trip departure time are kind of the same as a stochastic variation. So it's for the same FUA, Taunton, which is a very small area. We change the random seed and we obtain this variation. So it suggests that we need further experiment to disentangle results which are due to just stochasticity upstream the model, and which are due to parameters and to configurations. And so this is a suggestion of what kind of validation experiment we could do. So just to give a bit of background, it's some work which was presented last year at District. We presented this library for spatial analysis, including methodology from the paper cited above. where we generalize sensitivity analysis workflow to spatial configuration. So here you look, if I have, for example, missing data in my spatial data, will it influence a lot model outputs, or to what extent my results are dependent on the configuration I am in? So then you are able to separate intrinsic model dynamics from a contingent effect of geography. So and in that context, you need to be able to generate synthetic data. So these are two other papers where we are able to do this. And all of this is integrated into this library and into the OpenMOL software. So this is the second workflow engine we use. So OpenMOL is an open source software developed mostly at Complex System Institute in Paris. So it's for model exploration and validation. So you can do a model embedding similarly to the free platform, but also it's got a language-specific task to embed your model. You don't need necessarily to have a Docker container. Also, easy access to any HPC resource. And also a lot of exploration and optimization algorithm. So you can go to the website to see this. And this is a scripted workflow engine. And this is an example of coupling the spacer and quant. So for now, we don't have the full transport model, but we have already coupled these two. So for the population and for the flows. And here you specify your model and you can couple them into the workflow. And the advantage is that you've got all these methods for sensitivity analysis, spatial sensitivity analysis, design for experiment, calibration, and so on. And we are also able to integrate OpenMOL as a Docker image into Daphne. So to be able to use these methods into the Daphne platform. Okay, I think my time is soon up, so I will discuss, give a bit of discussion. So there's still developments to be done in this work. So integrated the multimodal mapping into the workflow system, and also calibrating mode choice parameter may be difficult because you need a lot of runtime depending on the calibration algorithm. It may be difficult. Also, visualization is not that straightforward because the MATSIM visualization feature are not open and they make pay for it. So maybe we need to implement our own visualizer. And also some perspective on dynamical through coupling of model, but it's not very important. And so the application, which are the title of the talk, but it's still work in progress, is to use MATSIM to quantify density in public transport and have some kind of potential exposure in the COVID context. So how to obtain health indicators for COVID. So we know there is no clear link between urban density and COVID. So this paper showed this, but there is some concern about public transport. So that's why it's important to focus on public transport. So the MATSIM team developed a full epidemiological model based on the MATSIM. I think it's called EpiSIM. But since it's huge and it's, if I just added some epidemiological components into the mobility model, so it is more difficult to systematically explore and validate. So we prefer to stay simple and use just public transport density as a proxy for potential transmission, and try to study this aspect in a systematic way. So this needs to be implemented downstream MATSIM using event files. So people going into a train or a bus, and then you got the number of people in the bus and so on. Then we'll be able to have some kind of systematic exploration, first on whole urban areas of policies, and also modifying agent schedules using genetic algorithm, maybe trying to optimize and given some constraint, trying to minimize the density and transmission within public transport. So just to conclude on the methodology itself, we consider open, reproducible, and validated models as elementary bricks toward larger integrated models. And also it's a remark which is made by a reviewer, and it is quite relevant, is that it can quite be useful to teach transport models because usually they are difficult to access or they are paying large software and so on, but you cannot teach easily. Using such workflow systems and such bricks, open bricks, you can maybe more easily teach this. So everything is open on GitHub. So you got this first repository for containers, so for containerizing the models and the workflows, and then this library for data processing. Workflow engine, you got the Daphne website and OpenMall, and I need to acknowledge the Daphne platform and Champion programs and the Urban Dynamic Labs grant. Thank you.
So how did you find using purely open source models? So I guess from my experience, and I guess from some other people's experiences, they can be quite tricky to get to run, and especially when you try and couple them together. So how did you find that in your case?
You mean in the sense that you need to dig in, it's not well documented, and it's not integrated, and you need to do your actually, it's one critic of open source that is usually done. It's kind of often quick and dirty, and it's not directly runnable. And actually, my work also it goes directly into this. So I just put it a small readme, but it's not. I still need to publish everything for everything to be totally reproducible. So it's true that you need to dig a bit, but one big advantage is that you can change the components. So if you've got your own component for synthetic population, for example, you can plug it. If you got your own component for indicators, and so, but you need a bit of work. So you need to know to code a bit of computer science. So maybe for planners, it's not as easy. But I think on the long term, if there is some kind of a community which builds around these open source tools, you can get support, and requests from planners can be answered by the developer communities. But yeah,
we've got a couple of questions coming in. So the first is from Alistair Ford. What do you think are the advantages of working with MatSim as opposed to other similar transport models?
Which kind of transport model do you have in mind? I don't know that much models, like a vSIM or this kind of models.
We'll let Alistair come back to that.
So
and we can.
But in any case, I think my answer would be that it's because it's open, and it has been there already been a lot of work on it. So that's the advantage. But if you got another transport component, you can plug it into the workflow instead of the MatSim. I'm kind of agnostic regarding the model, actually. But what is important is that this must be open, so it's reproducible, and you can go look at what is really implemented. Yeah, for example, I remember this software which was called Transcad, which was a transportation GIS software, so specific to transportation. It was a paying software, so closed software, and it was terrible because you really didn't know what was implemented in it, and it was buggy and so on. So yeah.
Yeah, Alistair's just come back and said, why use an agent-based model instead of a macro model, which is possibly easier to set up?
Yeah. So in my context, because we needed to have this public transport, so precise representation of people in buses, people in trains. So for this purpose, we needed an LBM. But if your research question is about congestion or flows, you can use an equilibrium model or anything else. Yeah, and you can also plug this kind of models into workflows. Yeah.
Great. I think that sounds like a good answer. Just the next one here. Thank you for the presentation. Do you have any insights when running the same workflow, perhaps in a different context with less accurate data, e.g., developing countries?
So for now, so I had to code a bit into the library and so on. for this, so it's not very generic. For now, it's still kind of UK profile. But in the end, I would like this to be much more generic and very some similar work. I don't remember the name, but it's one guy working with my team, which provided some kind of generic workflow to integrate OpenStreetMap data and so on, which can be easier to make more generic. Yeah, always in other countries, the question is what kind of data do you have? Is it robust? Is it and so on. Regarding this, that's why also the experiment I will try to do, like on this spatial sanity analysis, can be useful, because if you see that when changing the road network or the public transport network, you've got a lot of changes in model outputs, then you will know that your results on, for example, OpenStreetMap data, which is maybe more scarce in developing countries, will be less robust than if you got your ONS data or ordnance survey data.
Yeah, comes back to a lot about the data that's available, doesn't it? Two more questions. We've got a minute and a half, so let's see if we can get them both answered very quickly. Are there any social network model plugins that exist and have been used for transport modeling?
To my knowledge, not sure. But I think there are some, but I don't know any, just thinking like this. And it could be not that difficult in our case to plug a model and to say, okay, let's change a bit the timetable of people, plug in a social network. So it wouldn't be direct, because we like to adapt some code and so on. But it will be that much work, I think.
Okay, cool. We've got 30 seconds for this final question. How did you tackle the sensitivity issue, the influence of random seeds, for example?
So for now, it was just a preliminary experiment, the results I showed for this random seed. And so we just took one area and run the model several times. And for now, first result we have is that random seed gives as much variability as area and parameters. So, but in the end, when we will do more experiments and more validations for each area run, we need to run several times using different seeds, and then either look at the median or average behavior. But it's very important to look at the stochasticity in model output, because sometimes you get as much variability through stochasticity than through parameters. In that case, your result are not that robust, because the model is kind of the same everywhere. So for now, I don't have any answer, because it's only preliminary result, but it's experiment that we intend to do.